maybe not.
So what have you been up to, Richard?
What have I been up to?
Yeah.
You're cheeky, aren't you?
Not at all.
You know very well I've not been up to very much.
Yeah, but I derive a strange vicarious pleasure from knowing how relaxed you are.
I know. Well, I went out for a run this morning because I'm like that. I'm in the middle of talking to Chris Thompson about designing a cover for my novel.
I've heard.
Yeah, so there are things afoot.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you're not one of those sorts that can do absolutely nothing for an extended period, are you? I know, but even like keeping your brain active, doing the crossword or going for a run, you're not
absolutely
going to couch potato for months.
No, I couldn't do that. I really couldn't. I mean, I've even got my space shuttle model all ready to go over there on the table.
Oh, lovely.
So,
perhaps
I'll find
we
something.
can introduce another segment to the podcast where you give us a weekly update on how your space shuttle model is going.
Now, listen, talking about new... Well, let's run the titles and let's talk about this afterwards, because I'm a bit miffed, Jamie.
Oh, okay, fine. Well, I look forward to your miffness. It's the Gerry Anderson Podcast, Pod 32, Q Titles.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's get started.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Right, Richard.
Yeah?
What's the problem? What's wrong with you?
Well, now, Jamie, as you know, on our almost monthly Fab Live broadcasts...
Yes.
I spend hours and hours on Fab or Fib, one of our competitions, and blankety blank. I do the research, I write it all out.
Yep.
It takes me forever.
I know, I've seen you taking forever over it.
And what do I get from our viewers? Ridicule.
Yes.
Now, you, in our last podcast, just happened to read a couple of things from a book.
Yep.
And Twitter's all over you, saying how much they love the new... Listen to this, for example. This is Stephen Watson. I loved the hashtag Fab Facts this morning.
Yep.
Enhanced by the catchy musical accompaniment.
Oh, yes.
Well, thanks very much. Thanks, Stephen. Where were you when I slaved over Fab or Fib for our Christmas edition?
Oh, through the phone over.
I mean, I'm getting so upset. Everything's gone flying.
Oh,
now.
yeah, sorry.
I've hulked out.
Real kind of toys out of pram moment. Yeah, and all those lovely handwritten blankety blanks you do.
Yes.
And what else do you
nothing.
do?
What else do I do? I bring the sparkle to Fab Live.
You absolutely do.
I like to think so, anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I'm glad that people enjoyed it, Richard.
Yeah, well, I think they did. Are we going to get into some more today, or
yes? So
was that just? Oh.
So in the new structure of the Gerry Anderson podcast that you're listening to right now, starring you,
Richard James, and you,
Jamie Anderson.
Nicely done.
We will now have hashtag Fab Facts immediately before the Gerry Anderson news to get your Gerry Anderson juices flowing.
That's got to be a hashtag as well, isn't it?
Hashtag Gerry Anderson juices flowing. Yes. This is what we need, more ridiculous hashtags.
Is it though? Is it really?
Anyway, Richard, aside from that, what else is there today?
Well, we've got the usual stuff. We've got, I have to say, it's been a great week for tweetings. We've had lots of people getting in touch on Twitter using the hashtag Gerry Anderson Podcast.
Great.
And contacting either I'm Jamie Anderson or me, Richard N. James. So I'll be reading a few of those out as we go along. We've got a couple of listener emails as well, some merch ideas that were sent into podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. We'd love to get your emails. We'd love to get your voice recordings as well, your audio messages. So just send us a little something. It's quite easy to do. Record yourself on your phone and email it to us. podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, and we'll play that out as well. We've got some Gerry Anderson news, of course, to catch up with in just a moment. And we've got the randomizer from Chris Dale. Everything we know and love, all packaged into one podcast.
And you mentioned the part 2 of the Phil Ford interview there, did you? Sorry, I'm just
No, you weren't even
sending a text message.
Yeah, you see, if you'd been listening, you'd know whether I'd mentioned it or not.
Well, I'll have to go back in the edit and then work it out.
Well, I didn't mention it, so there.
You did. You didn't.
No.
You didn't mention the fact that we've got this interview with Phil Ford, the part 2 of the interview that started last week with part 1.
Well, no, I didn't. No, because I thought you'd do it. So,
Well, I've
you just
done
did.
It. Well, there we go. This is going well.
Isn't it?
So anyway, and of course, we
Yes.
will be getting to the Gerry Anderson news, that bit which would normally happen now, but this week
Yes.
instead,
Oh.
it's hashtag Fab Facts.
Oh, I can't believe you've actually given it a hashtag as well now.
Why not?
Oh. Right, so you're going to rifle through the... Oh, there's the music. Great. Right.
Here's the
Go on then,
the
flip through
tone.
the pages.
Richard, how this works, folks, is that I've got a book of Fab Facts right here.
Yeah, this is all he does. There's no preparation involved.
I had to prepare by getting the book out off the shelf. I'm going to flick through it. Richard will call stop, and I will read either the first or the most interesting fact from that spread.
Right.
And then we might discuss it if we know anything about it. If we know it to be demonstrably false now, there could be some false ones in now, you see.
Oh, hang on. You're encroaching on territory here,
No,
aren't you?
this is nothing like Fab or Fib. Anyway, here we go, Richard.
Go on then.
Don't forget how short the book is, so
Yes,
leave
all
it
right,
stop
so
too
I'm with
long.
you.
And
Stop.
right, what shall we have here? So,
The suspense is
I
killing
just
me.
want to find an interesting one.
This totally negates
Here's
the whole
one.
point of me shouting stop, doesn't it? You could just...
Well, no, because then I've only got about 10 to select from, you see. Rather
Okay,
than
go on
books
then.
with-
Go on then.
This is an interesting one, I think.
Oh, good.
Model Penny Snow toured Britain during the summer of 1968 dressed as Lady Penelope to publicise the Thunderbird 6 feature film.
Penny Snow.
Yes. Now I don't know who Penny Snow is.
No.
So, I'm just-
There's a Google, isn't
I'm
there?
just going to Google her now.
Gosh,
And we're
I
going
wonder if
to
she's still
learn
around.
about Penny Snow.
Penny Snow model from the 1960s, the swinging 60s.
Yeah.
Ah, that's a lovely thing.
Oh, well, annoyingly,
yeah.
there's nothing on her. There's nothing on her
Right.
on the internet.
Well, she can't exist then.
But interesting that her name was Penny, and she was
Yeah, wasn't
Big
it?
Lady Penelope.
What did you type? What were your search terms?
Penny Snow model and Penny Snow 1960s.
Ah.
Anyway, there you go. If you know anything about Penny Snow the model from the 1960s, email podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. I mean, there must be a picture of her doing that somewhere.
Yeah, there must be, absolutely. I'm sure someone could dig around and find something in an archive.
Yeah, so there you go. What a great promo
right.
thing. And that promo thing would be echoed later on, many years later, when Moya Ruskin, or Moya Griffiths, depending on when you're talking about her, dressed as the real Kate Kestrel to promote Terrorhawks
Great!
in 1983.
Well,
So
how interesting.
There you go. You know, and yeah, I suppose bringing characters to life in the real world is a recurring theme. They did the same for Space Precinct.
Hey?
Space Precinct, you know, that
Yeah.
thing you were in.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
They used to send out Wayne Forrester in the development and money-raising stage out to
Yeah.
events like MIPCOM and Kidscreen, dressed as a
Yeah.
Creon, where he would be on the floor live to engage with people and excite and entertain them. So
Yeah, it's odd though, isn't it? That's all very well, because obviously he appeared in the series as various Creons and Tarns and so on. But I always find it odd when someone tries to represent a puppet or a kind of a skin character as themselves. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, I know what you mean.
Doesn't
Well,
quite. You know, it's be like when you see people dressed as Postman Pat.
yes, no, I completely agree. I find them quite
They don't
creepy.
look like Postman Pat.
I find them creepy. They're
Yeah.
things like Spring Fair and Toy Fair and all those kind of industry toy events. There's always life-size characters,
Yeah.
and I find them terrifying. And like you're right,
Yes.
nothing like their on-screen
No.
counterpart. So
No.
I wonder how successful
right.
that Penny Snow tour was. Obviously not very, because there's no photographic evidence. Anyway,
Because no record exists of it anywhere. Yeah.
oh, hang on. Oh, this is exciting, Richard. I've just, with extending my research slightly, I have found something.
This just in.
This just in. I found a photo of Penny
Have you?
Snow as
Penny
Lady
Snow.
Penelope lying on the bonnet of the Fab 1, the full-size Fab 1.
Right. Well, there's
so
my new screensaver.
We will we will tweet this on the Monday
Great.
together with hashtag FabFacts. So if you search on Twitter,
Oh.
hashtag FabFacts, you'll
I
find
see.
the
Yeah.
photo relating to the Fab Fact that we just
Yeah.
dropped.
Yeah.
And that is the end of hashtag FabFacts.
Crying out loud.
Oh,
Right.
gosh.
Great.
Wasn't that exciting?
Well, it was exciting. It was very interesting. Yeah. little bit of jeopardy in there. Nice little resolution at the end. It's almost like he planned it.
No, honestly, no planning, but real-time research. It was such a lovely find. I'll send you that picture in a minute. It's brilliant.
Great. Yeah, that's sweet.
Right, so hopefully you enjoyed that rambling section.
Yes. Another rambling section, you mean?
Yeah, we've got another one coming
Hopefully
up.
you enjoyed that rambling section.
What's the next rambling section, Richard? Or do you want to do some tweets before it?
Let's read out a couple of tweets. Okay. We have Robert Monk got in touch to say that he survived another Gerry Anderson podcast.
Survived?
Yes, I know. It's terrible. And he does find himself skipping the episode Move and You're Dead, which was a Thunderbirds episode that Chris reviewed on the randomizer for us in the last podcast.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he finds himself skipping that. Well done, Robert. Okay, fine. Thunder Fury Bird said, I've got one earplug in my ear listening to the podcast while watching the Masters snooker on the TV. Hashtag multitasking. Fair enough. And also someone called Chris Packham tweeted this week.
Never heard of him.
No, doesn't ring any bells. Anyway, he's some sort of, I almost said naturalist, but that's not right, is it? Yes, that is right.
Yes, he's not a naturist, he's a naturalist.
What I don't want to say is naturist.
You said it now.
That's right. Chris Packham, TV presenter and naturalist, as we all know, tweeted a rather fantastic picture of him with the Gerry Anderson calendar, which I know lots of people have been buying recently. He said, everything is going to be FAB this year thanks to my Gerry Anderson calendar. Been re-watching UFO recently, so good, I got the T-shirt to prove it. And there was a lovely picture he tweeted of him in his UFO T-shirt. Also available, I should imagine, from the Gerry Anderson store.
Actually, he's wearing a limited edition, monthly edition T-shirt. Limited monthly edition, whatever.
Yeah.
One of those from last year, which is no longer available. But there are UFO things coming this year, and many others too. So sit tight. But yes, thanks, Chris, for that lovely tweet.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few tweets. I think it may be time for some Gerry Anderson news. Newsy news. News. I only do it because you like it.
I didn't think you were going to do that this week. Anyway, you're right. It is newsy news time, and I'm going to start with some convention newsy news. Convention news. Newsy news.
It's not quite so catchy.
No, it's not. It's harder to say. I had an email from the one and only Chris Dale this week.
Oh yeah.
And he's done a bit of snooping.
Has he?
Yes, yeah.
I thought he had a restraining order.
Not from this particular event, all these particular people. No, he dropped me a line to say, here's some newsy news for you. It looks like Showmasters are building a mini Space 1999 reunion for the next London Film Fair on the 3rd of Feb this year. Year 2 regulars Sarah Bullen, John Hugg and Sam Daster? Sorry, Sam, I don't know how to pronounce your surname. All announced yesterday to go with the already announced Catherine Schell, Brian Johnson, and Eva Rubinstein. I think that's how you say her name as well.
Very good.
I'm not very good at saying these things. So, yes, it hasn't been announced officially as a Space 1999 reunion, but it seems like one. And if you want to find out more about that, it's the 3rd of Feb in London, londonfilmconvention.co.uk.
Great.
So there you go. Another one for the South East. Sorry to those of you elsewhere and not in the UK especially. There is a charity event. 54321, I was emailed. A Gerry and Sylvia Anderson-based charity event to raise funds for the local RNLI here near Colchester in Essex on the 16th of March from 10:30 to 4:30. Tickets £12.50 adults, £7.50 for kids, and they've got Shane Rimmer and Matt Zimmerman and Mary Turner and Brian Johnson all going.
Oh, how wonderful.
So there you go. If you can get to Essex on the 16th of March, that might be one for you, and it's all in a good cause.
Yeah.
I think if you search Rescue 1 Colchester, then you'll find them online. If not, we'll tweet a link, and there'll be a news story on the Gerry Anderson website shortly. So
great.
There you go.
Interesting.
So plenty of convention-y things for the next few months for you to go to.
Yes, I guess Mary Turner will be taking some of her puppets that she displayed on Antiques Roadshow a couple of weeks back.
May well do, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, we had quite a few emails from people saying, oh, can you get us in touch with Mary Turner because we might want to buy her puppets. So she's drummed up a nice bit of business there.
There you go. Well, that worked then.
If you would like to celebrate your love of Captain Scarlet and stay warm in this winter weather.
Oh, very good. Who doesn't?
May I recommend the upcoming Captain Scarlet hoodies? We're hoping to release an Angel and SPV design to tie in as similar designs to our Thunderbirds hoodies that have been out last year that people have loved so much. So check them out on the Gerry Anderson store, shop.gerryanderson.co.uk. And I also just wanted to mention something charitable, Richard. I think I've mentioned the Young People's Puppet Theatre before on this podcast, but only really in passing. I'm a trustee for this wonderful charity. They do lovely work going into schools and deprived areas and taking primary school classes, and teaching them to, select a play, design and build a set or sets, design and build their own puppets, and then perform a complete play where they've made everything, and they do all the roles, including stage management, production management, the voices, the performance of the puppets, all that kind of stuff. It really helps the kids find kind of confidence, and the class bullies become the helpers, and the quiet ones find their voice and end up managing stuff. It's really lovely to see the effect of it. It's very, very powerful, and I wouldn't have become a trustee if I wasn't really touched and impressed by what they do. So I'd just like you to go and have a look at what they do get up to, yppt.org.uk. And if you fancy chucking them a couple of quid, every penny helps.
Great.
Do us a nice favour if you're enjoying the podcast. Chuck them a quid, chuck them a fiver, whatever you can spare. It all goes to help make sure that these kids can have quite a transformative experience, and also they are preserving and renewing an art which we don't really see very much, which is puppetry. And they all really get into it. They love it. So, yeah,
great.
Very impressive. And we will be doing, hopefully, in the last few months this year, a charity something or other to help raise money for the Young People's Puppet Theatre.
Really?
More news as we have it, but it'll be a way for you to get some very special, unique items for your Gerry Anderson collection.
Cool.
And all for a good cause. In fact, I don't think I've told you about this yet, Richard. I'll tell you after the podcast. But
how great. That's interesting.
It's quite fun. It'll be quite cool.
Yeah.
And you'll definitely be involved.
Nice.
Anyway, there you
will
go.
I now? Well, I think that's up to me, isn't it?
I'm telling
But
you,
yes,
you will be. Through willingness or guilt, I don't mind. So there you go, yppt.org.uk. Have a look at what they do. They're brilliant. And that is the end of the news. Over to you.
That was the news. That was the news. I mean, I almost left a space there because Jeff Owen got in touch on Twitter using the hashtag Gerry Anderson podcast to say, so it's now got to the point where I join in with Richard James to sing That Was the News. That was the news in the Gerry Anderson podcast. Help me.
And I replied, you're beyond help, I think.
Exactly.
Which he clearly is.
Yeah. So I reluctantly joined in there because I thought, well, I might leave a space for Jeff to sing his own version. But
to preempt it.
Yeah, but you can't keep a good man down.
No, well done, Richard. It's become an essential part of the podcast experience.
Has it now?
I think so, yes.
Great.
Right, so that's the end of the news and Richard's singing for now.
Thankfully.
Do we want any more tweets, or are we going directly?
I've got some tweets, absolutely. So
pre-listener emails. Let's
we've
have some
got
more tweets.
Craig Walker, who sent us some lovely pictures on Twitter, saying, introducing my almost 2-year-old to Thunderbirds yesterday, handing it down a generation, which we loved, don't we, Jamie? She was glued to it. Also included some Thunderbirds-themed baby clothes pictures we got her for Christmas in 2017. So find Craig Walker on Twitter and have a look at those pictures. They're really very cute,
They are
aren't they?
super cute, and also that is some great parenting.
Isn't it just?
I am unendingly amazed by how kids who are 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, who allegedly have no attention span whatsoever and all this sort of stuff, and are brought up in a world with multiple screens where they have access to whatever they want, whenever they want.
Yeah.
Those same kids will sit and watch, or even stand and watch 50 minutes of a classic Thunderbirds episode and love every minute of it. So, if you're out there and you have a niece, nephew, grandson, granddaughter, whatever, and you're hesitating about introducing them to the worlds of Gerry Anderson, don't. Chances are they'll love it. It'll be a great shared experience and some lovely shared nostalgia for you, and something brand new for them. So give it a go.
Yeah,
and if you
absolutely.
if you do show some young relatives, a Gerry Anderson show, then email us in and let us know the response. Podcast at gerryanderson.co.uk. Even if they went, it's boring. You're so old, Grandad, or whatever.
Highly unlikely.
But I doubt that'll
Highly
happen.
unlikely. No, that's right. James Pilson Wood also got in touch. That moment you realise it's Monday and you remember there's a new Gerry Anderson podcast. Another great segment by Chris Dale. Always happy to hear a Thunderbirds episode. Yes, Chris Dale's randomiser is back a little later.
It is.
After the second part of your interview, Jamie, with Phil Ford, of course.
Lovely
which you've also
Phil.
got to look forward to.
Yes.
In the meantime, I have to ask our lovely listeners, of course, if they could rate us and review us and share us and subscribe on whatever platform they're listening to so that they get notifications every time a new episode appears. Because we love it when you send us your reviews, so do leave them and a little rating and all that, so we know just how much you're enjoying us.
Yes.
Or not.
Or not, yes. Although we're thankfully short of the knots.
Yes,
Which is nice.
we are.
So please don't
That's
feel like
true.
you need to add to that. Listener emails, Richard.
Listener emails, Jamie.
I'll change the music bed then. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
See?
Nice, that's clever.
It's a crazy electro swing, isn't it?
It's
cool.
great.
You don't notice
It's got a good
these things.
groove.
I think it's very cool. So I've got the first one.
All right.
Only a couple this week. Paul Hyder, our regular China listener. I was going to say Chinese listener, but he's a Brit in China, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Lived there for a long time. He sent us a lovely picture of where he's listening to the podcast
He
from.
did.
Isn't it amazing?
Gosh, some sort of pagoda behind him there was
It's
rather...
sort of
dramatic.
temple-like, isn't it?
Yeah.
But anyway, Paul says, attached to the photo of me listening to your excellent podcast in Lotus Park, Kunming, China. I think it's Kunming, is that right?
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
Paul,
Possibly.
you will correct my pronunciation, and I would like to know, actually, if that's right.
Yeah.
Kunming
Yeah.
sounds better.
Who knows?
He says, keep up the podding, or should that be casting? I think it's both.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we will keep it up,
Yeah.
won't we?
But it's a lovely picture, though, isn't it? What a nice place to listen to the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Must-
Gosh, yeah. So, yeah, wherever you are in the world, actually, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Do send us or tweet us some pictures of, if you're perhaps not in the UK, I don't want to see pictures of, people on the M4 or, Heston Services or something listening to the podcast. But if you are somewhere that...
South Mims, though, maybe.
Oh, South Mims. Different
If
story
you're listening to
altogether.
us at South Mims, then do send a picture.
So if you are somewhere that we might think as being rather exotic somewhere else in the world, then do take a picture, take a selfie of yourself listening to the podcast and tweet it for us, or send it to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, because it would be lovely to get a flavour of where people are listening to us from, wouldn't it?
Yeah, do you know what, Richard? Do you think this ever might happen? I would love it if at some point somebody on the International Space Station was listening to us.
What?
Do you think that's possible? I mean, we know how many people went into working in kind of space technology and all that kind of stuff because of a love of Gerry Anderson. Is there a chance that out there somewhere there is an astronaut who listens to the Gerry Anderson podcast?
Oh, it's got to be a chance.
On the
hasn't there?
ISS, that would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it?
A great podcast selfie, that would be.
I mean, you couldn't top that, could you? That would break the internet. I think.
There's our goal, right?
All right.
So
Something to aim for.
yeah, let's see. I mean, someone's going to basically
Mock something up.
mock something up, or put some headphones into some guy on Sun Probe or whatever in Thunderbird and send us that. But
Of course they are.
yeah, so astronauts, listen
yes,
to the Gerry
get in
Anderson
touch.
podcast to get in touch.
Here's another for James Pilson Wood, who I read a tweet from him just a moment ago. He sent us an email saying, "Hi guys, thanks for playing my voice message. Apologies for it being a little long, but thanks for sorting that out for me. Yet we do reserve the right to edit your voice messages because we've only got a certain amount of time. But thank you so much, James, for sending it in. Love the addition of Fab Facts," he says. "Definitely think it's a keeper." I mean, here we go.
I absolutely agree, James. You're quite right.
Now, he's got a few ideas for some merch. Captain Scarlet watch, the one that both Captain Black and Scarlet wear in a number of episodes. Love the Brains watch, so more would be great. More pistols, come on Stingray, and of course a Space Precinct replica badge or shield would be amazing. Keep up the great work. Congratulations on the 3.5-year run with Awful Auntie. Quite an achievement. Thank you very much, James. Hope you can enjoy the downtime. I am indeed enjoying my downtime.
Well done, Richard.
Yeah, so that's rather nice. So a few ideas there. Captain Scarlet watch.
It's possible.
More pistols.
Well, both of those require the assistance of Dan at Planet Replicas. I'm speaking to Dan shortly, so hopefully we'll find out. In fact, by the time this podcast comes out, we will be sorting through and prepping to ship the Captain Scarlet replica pistols, of which there aren't that many left. So if you want to grab one of those, then go online and order it quickly.
Yeah, great. Lovely. I've also got another email that I meant to read out last week. This is the sort of concluding part to that lovely email we had from Alex K that I read out for our New Year's Eve edition, talking about what Gerry Anderson meant to him, but he also included a little merch idea that I promised I would read out in a future podcast. So here it is, and this is quite a nice one, actually. This is Alex Kay. He says, there was a Star Wars book released not too long ago called From a Certain Point of View, which focused on random background Star Wars characters relaying the events of the first film from their perspectives. For example, stormtroopers, cantina patrons, imperial generals, etc. I would love for there to be a Gerry Anderson equivalent. For example, the events of the XL5 episode Invasion from the perspective of a Space City technician. Or the Thunderbirds episode alias Mr. Hackenbacker from the point of view of a passenger on board the hijacked plane. You get the gist? I'm aware this will probably never come to pass, but it's been brewing away in my mind for so long I just had to get it off my chest, and that's an Alex Kay.
It's an interesting idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
It'd be quite fun.
It would be fun. Now, Jamie, this sort of led me to think, what's stopping people writing and publishing their own fan fiction, as long as they were to declare that it's obviously not infringing on any copyright for charity or something? I mean, could there possibly be a collection of fan fiction short stories in the way that Alex suggests that could be published by someone enterprising?
So you couldn't publish it for money. I think you could put it out for free, but the thing is you're using IP that is owned by ITV or others. But there's plenty of fan fiction things online. Various fan fiction websites, and there's also Wattpad, which is a kind of fan fiction self-publishing platform. So there's nothing to stop people doing it for fun, but not for remuneration.
Quite right.
So if you fancy doing it, just write stuff and,
that's right,
share it with the world.
Yeah, exactly, because you'll be amazed how far around the world it travels as well. That's the thing. Before you know, you'll have viewers in Australia and China and all sorts reading it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Very good. So I think that just about concludes the emails. If you want to get in touch with us, do drop us a line, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk for our future podcasts. And don't forget, also, we'd love to hear Josh Long. You promised in your New Year's resolutions to record us an audio message.
Get on with it, Josh.
So we're waiting. Yeah,
and
we love to hear your audio
message.
message.
Thinking about doing it, just do it.
Yeah, that's right. Send
say
it
some words.
podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Keep it between, 30 seconds and a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Just save me on editing.
Great.
Perfect.
Yeah. So all those many ways to get in touch with us. However, it's time now to move on to our second part of the interview that Jamie gave with Phil Ford in our last podcast.
Yeah.
What's coming up, Jamie?
I'm just trying to remember. So I think last time we left it about Phil getting his first agent and how he did that. Then going to move on to a few of the things he's worked on, the shows he's worked on, other than the obvious.
Yeah.
How he started working with Dad, new Captain Scarlet, his involvement, his level of involvement, and why they made certain decisions, and then beyond, and Phil's kind of reflection on the worlds of Anderson. So it's a really nice round off. Some interesting details he throws in about New Scarlet and how they worked. Should we pass over to past me and Phil?
Yeah, great.
Good. Then here they are. He is.
That was how I got my agent. Interestingly, as well, the research, the whole business thing, and that research that I did with the prostitutes, later on, years later, funneled into the first two-part bill that I wrote called Tom, which was totally based on my experiences when I was doing that. So yes.
That's a great route in, Phil, and great going through sort of the jack of all trades route of, writing for every other industry except for this. So you get your first gigs through the agent. Can you rattle off some of your sort of highlights of shows that you've written for across the years?
Oh gosh, well, I've written on my first gig was Taggart, which was astonishing. I got a 3-part Taggart in the days when they were 3 parts. So that was 3 hours, which was quite extraordinary. And it took me ages to write. And every time I'd go in for a meeting, I expected them to fire me. But yeah, so I wrote Taggart, and while I was writing Taggart, I think it was, we'd approached Coronation Street, and so just around the time when I finished writing Taggart, I did my first meetings at Coronation Street, and I think, if I remember correctly, my first Coronation Street went out around Christmas and the first episode of my Taggart went out on New Year's Day, on the following New Year's Day. So,
you had a good week.
Well, yeah, apart from the fact that the BBC was screening Forrest Gump for the first time at the same time that my Taggart went out. But I had to say that it was, it was one of the few shows that actually gained 1 million per week afterwards. So everybody was watching Forrest Gump, then watched my Taggart. So that was quite cool. Okay. So I did Coronation Street. I was on Corrie for 5 years. Did 86 episodes there. Wow. Killed off Judy Mallet. married Roy and Hayley Cropper. Did all sorts of things. I loved Coronation Street. It was a tremendous place to work. It really was. And we had our meetings in the basically the upper floor of the street. So that was quite nice.
Nice. So you're literally there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. When I started, we had them in a meeting room, and then they opened this conference room up on the top floor of the set, and so that was really cool because we used to, the entrance was a side door to the shop. and we'd be coming in, and of course at that time this was the original Coronation Street, and they were running the tours. So we'd get there, and there'd be all these people, visiting the street, the public visiting the street, and I was like, who are those people sneaking in the back side door of the corner shop? Aha, we're the right.
And it was you,
which was really. That was that was very cool, and it was a kind of pinch yourself thing every time I'd go there. I mean, I've always found this kind of pinch yourself sense of whenever I'm on a set or when we ever have a read through on a script. I remember that my first read through for Taggart, you came in as this big room, and there's all the cast sat around and the producers sat around a big table, and you read through the script. But then around the room, the outside of the room, there were even more people sat around there, and they're all of the crew and the production staff, everything, who are going to make it happen. And it's a very exciting time. Yeah. So anyway, So yes, and while I was in Corrie, I also wrote for Bad Girls, which was huge fun, and I wrote 17 episodes of Bad Girls, including the very last episode.
Nice.
Not that we realised it was going to be the last episode when I wrote it. But, and I did Heartbeat and The Bill, and at that time when I was on Corrie, I'd also got to know John Needham, who had produced Space Precinct with Gerry, of course. He was at that time head of drama at Mentor. Now because while I was doing Corrie, you're still sending out spec scripts and still trying to get other things. And I got this spec script called Stag Hunt, which in fact had been the other script that I'd written and sent to the agency and got me
the less grisly one.
The less grisly one, which was about a mounted police force, again based on a feature that I'd written. And anyway, so John had liked Stag Hunt, and we talked about them doing it. Of course, it never happened, but at some point he said that that he knew Gerry, and obviously we talked about Space Precinct, and then of course the two of them got together in business, and they were developing a project called Eternity.
Yep.
And John got in touch with me, and they invited me down, and so it was the first time I met Gerry. It was his 70th birthday. When I went in for a meeting at Pinewood with him to talk about Eternity, and I shall never forget, because it's really quite a standout moment in my entire career. Really, I mean, it was a standout moment meeting Gerry. It was kind of scary, because he was a legend, and really was. I mean, and he had been, a very big part of my childhood, as of course he was for many people. I was actually going to get the chance to meet him. I also remember smashing before I jumped on the train to go down to Pinewood, smashing my finger in the car door. Oh. so I got this great big bandage on it when I went down there. But the thing I was going to say to you, when we were having the meeting, there's a knock on his door, and he wasn't at this point in that nice panelled office that he had when we made Scarlet. He was in some much smaller office near the toilets. Anyway, there's a knock on the door, and this guy comes in with a bottle of champagne, and he says, "Gerry, you don't know me, but I heard it was your 70th birthday, and I just wanted to say that it was your shows that got me into the industry, and I just wanted to say thank you." And that was just the first time I saw somebody thank him for getting him into the industry, by inspiring them to get into the industry. And over the years, I've met so many other people who had been inspired by him. People that I worked with on Scarlet, and other people that I've known. And I know that there are engineers. People who design planes, rocket engineers, all kinds of people who were inspired by Thunderbirds and all of the other shows. I think that's so important, and it says something really important about children's television as well.
Absolutely. The amazing power to engage and enthuse and excite kids
and shape someone's life.
They could become a career, and then their career could go on and change people's lives in a different way. So it's really important.
Exactly. So it's quite tremendous. So so we were going to do Eternity, and I wrote, I think it was the third episode of Eternity, because they got some money to develop. I wrote that. And then they asked me to come back and rewrite the first episode that they'd had written. So I did that. And Eternity was a great project. I loved doing it. And Gerry was so generous and enthusiastic about my writing as well. So that was, which was quite lovely. And shortly after that, I was fired off Coronation Street. And never having found out why. Then we went. Ended up doing Captain Scarlet. I mean, there was some talk when I went to that first meeting. I think they'd been having negotiations for some time with ITV to get the rights to Captain Scarlet. And initially, there'd been some discussions about doing it as a movie. And then, as we all know, it became the new Captain Scarlet TV series.
Became a series. So it's quite a long period actually between that first. So if it was Dad's 70th birthday, that would have been the 14th of April, 1999.
Wow.
Was the first meeting. So that Eternity discussion must have gone on for a couple of years, I guess, with a bit of development.
I honestly can't remember. I remember I was certainly still at Coronation Street when I wrote it. Certainly the first script, because I can remember being in Manchester, walking up Dean Street, having a conversation over the phone with your dad about it. I remember that. So 99. Gosh, yes. And so it was some time, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, probably 3 or 4 years overall, I would think, before. So, but then you get the call saying, "Phil, we've got a green light. We're going ahead. Do you want to be lead writer on this new show?" Was it just like that?
There was never any kind of official thing about being lead writer. I think it was just the fact that I was available to write.
Brilliant. Bill, you're available. Will you just write all these episodes?
Because there were a couple of other writers, of course, but as I say, I was available, and I also wrote fairly quickly. I mean,
it's always helpful.
Well, I always have done, and I mean, to me, it was hugely exciting because finally, because I went into the business to write this kind of thing. Yeah. This was the last show I ever expected to be working on before I got my commissions was Coronation Street. I'd watched it and enjoyed it and everything, which is where I was able to get into it so easily. But I never expected to write it. I always wanted to write, dark stuff or fantasy and whatever. So to write Captain Scarlet was a dream come true, and particularly as it had been my favourite of the puppet shows.
As you said, was that? Did it make it daunting though? Going from like, well, here's an iconic show which people love, and I'm going to be partly responsible for bringing it back and setting the tone and all that kind of stuff.
I don't think I ever really felt daunted by it, excited by it, really, because it was something so completely new to me, really, to do that. And also, I was used to writing like 30-minute episodes because I was in Coronation Street. But writing Captain Scarlet was such a massive change because basically, we wanted them to be like mini movies, and so they were much faster moving, much shorter scenes and all of that. But so I never really felt it daunting. I just kind of thought it was a great opportunity, to be honest. And it was just great fun. And of course, I trusted Gerry, and I trusted his judgment. And I do remember Gerry saying to me at one time, I can't remember what it was that we were talking about, whatever, but I remember him saying, "You do realise that I will take credit for this because because I can't remember." He said, "But you do realize I will take credit for this because I'm the producer, and that also means that if it's I also take the credit for that." So, fair enough. That's okay. I'll go with that.
Okay. I'm glad he was upfront on that side. When you came in, Phil, was the kind of the direction of the show and the characterization and the tone and that kind of thing already nailed down, or were you heavily involved in developing that?
It was. I think it was very early days, really. And bearing in mind, we'd been talking about this for a long time before they actually did get the rights. As it happens
in TV and film all the time.
Exactly. Tell me about it. And so, I mean, what ideas there were to begin with, I honestly, when we came into that first meeting, I honestly can't remember. I think we always wanted to. I certainly personally had always wanted to make the characters more complex,
of course,
more human, because that was what I did. And I've always kind of thought there's no point in doing a reboot or a reimagining of any show unless there was something that wasn't quite right or good enough in the original. Which is. Right, to be quite honest with you, I've many times said to Gerry that we shouldn't remake Thunderbirds because I always thought that was classic, and it will always, whatever's done, it'll never measure up to the original.
Kind of with you there.
And with Captain Scarlet, it was my favourite, but the one thing that I thought that was wrong with it, apart from the fact that the puppets couldn't actually run and stuff, and you were actually making a show, was that the character development could do with a bit more, humanizing, and he, of course, he was absolutely agreeing with that. So we always wanted to make more relationships and make the characters more human. And I think I can't remember why we decided to make Lieutenant Green a woman, but I think it was part of that, that whole thing. We got the angels, and for that, and in the original series, making your fighter pilots a team of women was great in terms of
very forward thinking.
It was absolutely, but we wanted to go a bit further. So Lieutenant Green was a woman, and we made Captain Oka, one of the captains, a woman as well. And I wanted to kind of build up the relationship more with Scarlet and Blue. So a lot of it kind of came naturally, and you could. So I think the third story was Homecoming, which is about where we discover that Lieutenant Green's father was an astronaut who was lost, who disappeared, and then comes back, and of course he's mysterized. So and she has this conflict about ultimately whether to kill him or not, whether he's
particularly great one that.
So I kind of think that kind of set it up. But the thing that was, I think always with me, and it was that I was looking at them all as mini movies, and that's what that's kind of the way that your dad always saw everything that he did.
Absolutely.
And so I wanted to make them varied and fun. That was the most important thing, that they should be fun. I do remember that in terms of planning the series, I know that I'd come up with names for the vehicles, which Gerry just kind of chucked in the bin. with much better ones. Yeah. But I mean, as with all of these things, it was very much a team effort. I loved going down to Pinewood pretty much every week. Just working at Pinewood, it was amazing.
Yeah.
I'd go into the office with Gerry, and we'd go through the script that I'd just written, and he'd have his notes, and I'd go away and do those, and then we'd have another meeting where we'd toss around ideas for the next episode, and it was a very exciting collaborative process.
Nice.
Quite unlike, to be honest, many others that I'd done up to that point. So it was, I've always felt honoured and blessed that I got the chance to do it.
Billy, you're such a suck up, but obviously you're going to say that to me.
I know. But it's so true, because, and I don't think, I've done Doctor Who as well, of course, and that was a huge privilege as well. But the thing is that Gerry's shows really did shape me more than the others, more than anything else. Yeah. Because I was watching them from, they were. I think when I was much younger, Gerry's shows were more. I got them better than I got possibly the slightly more cerebral Doctor Who at the time. So it's good. And of course, he had a lot of good stories, and he used to treat me to a lot of lunches as well.
Oh, well, you can't ask for much more than that, can you, Phil? That's brilliant.
I'm happy, and he paid me.
Win all the way.
It certainly was.
In terms of the process of writing, did he just say to you, just chuck me some ideas, like golf and write them?
That would basically be it. I mean, we'd go down, and the other great thing about doing Captain Scarlet was that there were so many episodes, so there were a lot of opportunities to come up with stories and things. I'd come in with some ideas, and I don't think there was ever a problem in coming up with ideas for Captain Scarlet at all. And and I'd just chat them through with Gerry, and Gerry would throw in his ideas, and then I'd be commissioned, and I'd go away and write the script. And I can't remember for sure, but I reckon it probably took about two weeks or something to write the script. And then I'd come back and do a second. I don't think we ever went beyond the second draft, or maybe third draft. And I know that there were some episodes that Gerry accepted on first draft, which was really good. Yeah. And hopefully you can't spot those when you watch it on TV.
Well, I have to go back and rewatch them now and see. No, I'm sure we can't. Now, Phil, there's the infamous House of Dolls story, which was never made. Can you tell me about that a little bit?
Well, I mean, that was I think that was I think it was a very late story. I think it was I think it was possibly the penultimate episode, because Grey Skulls was the one that I wrote to replace it. Yeah. And it was basically an idea that would have brought in Captain Scarlet's sister and his nephew, indeed. And it was about Scarlet being on leave and being with his sister and her son, his nephew, and they're attacked by the Mysterons. There's a crash, and Scarlet dies, and then comes back to, and then is regenerated. And of course, his sister sees this and realizes that he's not human anymore. But they basically take shelter in this house, which is owned by a guy who made toys, and his house is full of all these different kinds of toys and puppets and things. And the Mysterons show up and Mysteronize the puppets. Because I remember, because it was a thing, I think this quite early on, I remember Gerry talking about the whole concept of the Mysterons. And I remember him talking about a salt cellar. I think we were having a lunch or something, and there was a salt cellar there. And he said the great thing about it is the Mysterons can manipulate anything, so they could build that salt cellar might actually be Mysteronized. I was thinking at the time, I was thinking that's a very strange idea, but then I could use it. So you could have all these puppets and toys and things which come to life because they're taken over by the Mysterons. And it included this very scary teddy that became very scary, and that was really the key the thing that made it just tipped it just that little bit too far over the edge. I remember that was one that I did do another draft of to try and make it less scary, but ultimately Gerry felt that it was too scary to actually make, and he was probably right. But of course, the other thing, I'm not sure if Gerry was aware of this at the time, but there was a plan by the production team to cast Gerry as the toy maker. This guy, certainly in the script, there was a chauffeur and a mermaid. And a scaly creature and things. There were puppets that kind of in some way mimicked characters from Thunderbirds and from Stingray and whatever. But actually, yeah, it probably. I was thinking about it not so long ago. There was a scene in the original which in which the toy maker is actually garroted by one of his puppets.
Oh wow!
And
quite dark
now. A little bit too far. But yes. So anyway, so yeah. So the House of Dolls was never made, and to replace it, I wrote Grayskulls, which is one of my favourite episodes.
So it worked out well. Anyway.
I absolutely did. If only they'd got it the right way around on the DVD.
Oh yes, in the wrong place. Tut tut.
Yes.
When you started to see it being churned out, Phil, what did you think of the quality of what was being produced, especially in the early episodes?
I was blown away by it. I mean, obviously there were production problems on the first two episodes, and they don't look quite the same as the later more polished, shall we say? But for me, it was a huge thrill seeing, because I'd never written anything like this before, and it was that thing about I was a kid playing in my toy box. Yeah. So it was awesome. It was wonderful. But yes, obviously, as the show went on, the animation got better, more sophisticated, and I think we all just kind of got into the swing of it. So it just because I am still immensely proud of Scarlet. And when it came out on Blu-ray recently, obviously I watched it again, which is probably the first time I've watched it since we made it, and it still very much stands up. Certainly.
Especially for CG. Elsewhere, CG stuff ages so quickly, but this was so beautifully done and so much effort was put in. It does stand up quite well.
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge operation. It was a very ambitious operation. The whole production was, which is, and that was nothing new for Gerry. I mean, I think if I'm right, Thunderbirds and Space 1999 were both the most expensive shows of their kind at the time.
As was Space Precinct, and then Scarlet again.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a shame that we don't make more shows like that have that.
I completely agree. Yeah,
that ambition. But yeah, I was blown away by it. It was a great thing to be part of.
Yeah. So that's the positive side of New Scarlet, and there's a lot of positives to it. What about your feelings, Phil, in terms of how it was handled in terms of broadcast and distribution?
Well, I think there was It's not necessarily my place to say, but I think there was an error made by somebody in the organisation when they chose to, ITV had given them the right to Scarlet to make, and I think the decision which ultimately left ITV with distribution rights in their own backyard was a mistake.
Yeah,
that I think that left them to some extent understandably pissed off, and I think that they then wasted the show because they didn't have they didn't have an incentive to make it succeed. And that's my feeling. I'm obviously not privy to everything that went on around that.
It was very complex as well. But
yeah. But that's my reading of the situation.
Yeah. So in essence, I think that's right. And then beyond that, it was trapped into a global distribution deal with a company that ended up going into liquidation. The rights were held up there, and it was just such a shame that all these hundreds of people's man hours and efforts and love that have been poured into it were sort of wasted in so many ways.
Well, in so many ways you can say they were wasted, but I mean, a lot of the people that did watch it did enjoy it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I know that there are people who will always be quite rightly diehard fans of the original series.
Yeah.
And I know that there was one person in particular who on the internet I've seen who seems to think that I'm the son of Satan for what I did to. But most people that I've encountered, really enjoyed it. I mean, years later when we were on location with Wizards vs. Aliens, I and my producer just happened to come across this memorabilia shop in some little town out in the Welsh Valleys somewhere. A very odd place to find it.
Was it in Tony Pandy by any chance?
It might have been. I couldn't really say. I couldn't say, to be honest.
There aren't many. I'm pretty sure it would have been the one in Tony Pandy. Anyway,
it could well have been. But we went in there because my friend producer Derek Ritchie is a huge geek. And he was looking at the stuff. And while we were in there, we find a copy of Captain Scarlet, and Derek says that tells the guy in there that I wrote it, and he's full of praise for it and everything. So I signed it for him. And,
well done, Phil.
I hear so many people say how much they enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, huge amount of love. The issue is not with the response it got from the fans and from the new child audience and old fans revisiting it.
Yeah.
With the availability and the time slot and all that sort of stuff, which is such a shame. So if you haven't watched it, I would implore you to go and give it a go. There's a free episode on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel in HD.
Is there indeed? Which was that?
Rat Trap.
Oh, right. That's another one of my favourites, yes.
Okay. Well, you keep saying, another one of my many favourites.
Oh, they're all my favourites. If I wrote them, they're my
Well, fine. All right, fine. Of your favourites, which one is the favoritist? Which in your opinion is the best episode of New Captain Scarlet? For whatever reason.
It probably is Grey Skulls.
Okay.
Because of the characters that we used in there. It's a big one for Captain Ochre, who, if we'd done another series, I think we'd have seen more of.
Yeah.
And also because the animation hit its peak there. It's fantastic, the animation.
Really elegant by that point.
Yeah, and it's also a cool story. It's a cool story, and it's got motorcycle gangs in, and also, of course, introduce a whole bunch of characters which we, in another series, or they could even have had their own spin-off show. Who knows? Yeah.
Maybe one day, Phil.
You never know. So maybe that's probably my ultimate favourite. But there are so many of them. Chiller, I enjoyed, and Rat Trap was great. Again, that was one of those episodes that took my breath away with the animation. I was just because they're all wearing those silvery suits, and the robot is metallic as well, and I just loved the way that you got those reflections on the surfaces and things, and the light on them. It was wonderful. And there's another episode. I'm desperately trying to remember the name of it now, where they Certis Minor. It's either Certis Major or Certis Minor.
Certis Major, I think. Yeah.
When they go to the mine up on Mars.
Yes.
And there's that gas on there. Yeah. That's another one, and the story that I like because it's quite creepy. But again, the animation. Because it's quite, I think that's one of the best episodes with Captain Black in. And then there's the one where Captain Black has got married, settled down with Destiny, and
the sort of vaguely Christmassy episode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it's just that one sequence that's Christmassy. But I wrote that at Christmas. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah. Basically, if I wrote it, I loved it.
If I wrote it, it's amazing.
It's always been the same.
It's good to be confident in your own workflow. All right, fine. On the flip side, with the benefit of coming out for 14 years, hindsight, is there anything you would have done differently?
In terms of the way we set the show up, or
in terms of characters, the gender split, the locations, the way the Mysterons behaved, anything you look back and thought, I wish I hadn't done that, or I wish I had done that.
Well, I always say to people that if you write something, you put it in a drawer and you come back to it later on, and you can't find something that you want to change, you're not a very good writer. But I'm thinking back on Scarlet.
But having said that,
yes, no one's ever asked me, is there anything you would have changed in Scarlet? I really, I've just done more of them.
That's a perfectly legitimate answer.
Yeah, there's probably, if I went back and watched them, maybe there would be something that I wouldn't. I think maybe because in The Storm at the End of the World, there is a moment where Scarlet breaks the neck of one of the men that are pursuing him. I think I might not have done that.
Okay.
Now. Only in as much as I think that's probably was a little bit too visceral for the show that we were supposed to be making. But often it's the way that these things are handled in the production rather than what you write. I mean,
of course, Russell
T Davies always says, you can write about anything for kids. It's just really how you write it.
Yeah.
No, I honestly can't think of anything that I would change about it.
Well, that's a pretty positive testament about the show itself. Then, if you feel that happy about it,
as I said, I've always felt very. I could well go back and watch it and maybe wince at one line or whatever here and there maybe. Yeah. But I don't think that there's anything sweeping in terms of the characterization, the way that the show worked that I would change. I seem to remember at the time there were some people saying, well, you don't have the Mysterons telling Spectrum what they're going to do.
Yeah.
There was a reason that we didn't do that. They wouldn't.
No, exactly. Well, when you said there were some things that one could change about the original, that's one of the many aspects where I kind of thought, oh, why do they do this? Why don't they just do their attack and not do the
You say that, but at the time when you watch the original, when you still watch it, you don't question it really.
No, it works in context.
Yeah, I just kind of felt because, for me, it's sometimes a question of the medium. If we were doing it with puppets, when we did it with CG, it was slightly more real than it was, with puppets, I think, for me.
Yeah.
And there may be people out there will be throwing stuff at me right now, but that's the way. And so there were some things that maybe you could get away with when you puppets, and when we were trying to make things more real and more realistic in many ways, Scarlet, in the new Captain Scarlet. I think, yeah, Mistron's giving away the plot straight away is probably not something that they would do.
I'm with you there. I'm totally with you. So, Phil, you leave Captain Scarlet, you leave New Captain Scarlet. You've already mentioned Russell T Davies. So, just very briefly for me, where might people have seen your work since New Captain Scarlet?
Well, with Doctor Who and with the Sarah Jane Adventures that I wrote and produced. Then after that, I did a series that I co-created with Russell called Wizards versus Wizards versus Aliens, Wizards versus Angels. I almost said that.
There's a future one.
Wizards versus Aliens, which ran for 3 series. So yeah, I think that's what I've been doing up to now. And as I say, I've been the last couple of years I've been writing movies, and I've had various stuff in development. I've got a new show which we're hoping at any minute to get the distribution deal done.
Fingers crossed for you, Phil.
Which will be a new family fantasy adventure series, which will be very ambitious and has got people all over Europe very excited. so we'll see. But I'm quite excited about that, and yes, and I'm about to start a new movie as well. So
brilliant.
Yes, so,
and of course,
feels sorted out.
Yeah, as is the way with these things. And across these new things, Phil, would you say that the Gerry Anderson influence is still there in some areas?
I think it's always creeping into stuff. I mean, do you mean necessarily stuff that I'm doing, or stuff that I see out there?
Well, let's first tackle what you're doing. Are there sort of the elements of curiosity and fascination that were set up with you as a child watching things like Thunderbird, Scarlet, and UFO? Does that consciously or subconsciously influence what you're writing?
Oh, it's very certainly. I mean, who knows subconsciously, but certainly, consciously, there are times when it does. I think the whole idea of, for example, in Wizards versus Aliens, we have a magical cavern, and the fact that is accessed by going through saying a magic spell in a toilet, I think is in some way influenced by Gerry. The wonderful hidden layers, exotic ways of getting down to them. I've always wanted to do another UFO kind of thing. I always loved Straker's office. I think Straker's office was certainly in my mind, bizarrely, when I decided that you would go through the toilet into this magical cave.
Nice, a bit less glamorous, but still cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm sure. I may not even be aware sometimes when I'm influenced by these things. But I would still love to do a remake of UFO. It's just one of those things I've talked to people about before times, and I know exactly how it should be done.
Yes, I'm sure. Well, we can hope that there might be some opportunity. You never know.
Well, yeah, I'm always looking for the opportunity.
Yeah, we all. Phil, last question.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I promise, because I've kept you for a very long time now.
It's gone like a moment.
Of course it has. Yes. Yeah. No, it's been lovely, and I'm sure the listeners feel the same. So, can you? The listener, did you say singular?
No, I said if they're still listening.
Oh, of course they will be. Yeah, absolutely. They'll be loving every moment, I'm sure. Can you summarise, do you think, what it is about Gerry Anderson shows that gives them their Anderson-ness, and where does that sit in the modern entertainment world? That's
a really good question. I mean, I think the ambition, as I said before, is always important in Gerry's shows. I mean, Gerry never made an unambitious show, I don't think.
No.
And I think that's the key to it, because I kind of think that he felt so invested in what he was doing, and financially, financially and creatively, and I think they are there are no other shows in the world that are like him. I mean, I still think Gerry is unique as a British producer, in my opinion, and also I kind of think that he should have been even more recognised by the industry than perhaps he was.
I agree.
Because he was making shows that nobody else was making in this country. Yes, there was Doctor Who, but as I say, Doctor Who, much as I love it and much as I loved it back then, was in some ways a cosier show. And Gerry's shows were about technology and ambition, and about a positive investment in the future. Even Scarlet, though I say that it was very dark and bleak, it still had great craft and machines and things, and in UFO it was dark, but it was quite bright. When you watch UFO, the thing that despite the dark nature of it, it actually looks bright, and it's there's kind of that subliminal brightness and hope for the future, if you know what I mean. And I think that's a big thing with Gerry's stuff, that there is that ambition. And as I say, it's hugely important that his shows have influenced so many kids, and in some way, to a greater or lesser extent, actually influence their life choices. I'm sure there are probably firemen and paramedics who are influenced by Thunderbirds that wanted to save people just as much as that there are rocket engineers who were inspired by Fireball XL5 and Thunderbirds in a different way. And also, it inspired me to become a writer in many ways. And another writer once said to me that before I started writing for kids, that the important thing about writing for kids is that it shows them how to write. It can. Yep. So it's kind of, as that guy at the office was inspired to get into movies, then other kids were inspired to become storytellers and things. So that's what I think the most important thing of it. It's the legacy. It's the legacy. It's the fact that those shows are still there, and they'll be watching them in another 20, 30 years.
Or beyond, possibly.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we hope so. Phil, brilliant answer. Thank you very much. If our listeners want to find you online, how can they do that? Where can they do that?
I'm on Twitter.
Phil Ford ESQ.
Yeah.
On Twitter is the place to follow Phil and
yes, that's right. Not by email address.
No, don't worry. We will have removed that by the time they hear it. Phil, thanks so much.
You're very, very welcome. It's been
You're a star.
Thank you, and so are you.
Interesting.
Wasn't that interesting?
Yeah, nice.
And he's a very nice bloke. Do you know that recording of that interview? Yeah. Although the interview itself was like an hour and 50 long, I think it's pretty long. There was also 50 minutes before that of me and Phil just catching up and shooting the breeze and all that sort of stuff. It was really nice, but sadly, stuff in there that I can't put out in the public domain. But really interesting and a very nice chap. So thank you, Phil.
Yeah.
And as he said, you can follow him on Twitter. Phil Ford Esquire, Phil Ford ESQ.
Yeah.
But yeah, I couldn't believe that an episode of New Captain Scarlet only took him two or three, maybe 3 weeks to write.
Yes. Now how long was each episode?
They were 22-minute episodes.
22 minutes, yeah.
I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but there's a lot to consider and to get right. And also the fact that sometimes his scripts were accepted on first draft.
Yeah, which is extraordinary.
It's really unusual. But I do know some writers who basically say, it's not a draft, that's the script.
Well,
I'm working on the finished thing, which is an interesting attitude, but
yes.
it should take, well, not should take, but often take much longer.
Yeah, how long would... I mean, you've written the Terrorhawk stuff you did.
Well, yeah, but see, an average Terrorhawk script might take weeks. I mean,
right.
It's not constant, but you can't... You've got to give your brain some time to think and to mull stuff over. And quite often I would have a problem where I couldn't come up with a solution. I would leave it for a few days and then just be like in the shower or on a walk, and a solution would come. Yeah. There's one exception, which is Sale of the Galaxy, the first episode of Series 2 of Terrorhawks Audio, which was written between 6 p.m. and 3 a.m. one day, the day before the recording with Nicholas Parsons.
Wow.
And the remainder was written in half a day after that, before the rest of the cast recorded.
Wow.
That was a bit of an emergency one.
Squeaky bum time.
Yes, it was. And what about you, Richard? Because you write lots of things, don't you?
Yeah, I think the quickest I actually set myself the task, just for fun, of writing a one-act play in a day.
Oh, there you go.
Like starting from scratch with no idea or concept of what it might be, where it might be set, who might be in it. Just literally sitting down and going, right, I've got a day, I'm going to write a one-act play. And now we're talking maybe 28 pages, A4, so not a huge amount.
But that's about the same length as a Terrorhawk script or a Captain Scarlet script. Probably.
Yeah.
But that's loads.
So as you would do, I ended up setting it in India in 1857.
Something every day that you can instantly recall. You don't need any research.
Exactly.
And what's happened to that now? Has it been performed?
It's been performed. Yeah, it's called Indian Summer. It actually turned into a bit of a love story. So it's about an artist and his model, and he turns up to paint her. He's commissioned to paint her, and through the course of the play, they have their ups and downs and sort of fall in love a bit.
Oh, that's nice.
It's quite sweet if I don't say so myself.
Lovely. Yeah. And if people want to find that, where can they find it?
Just type in Richard James Indian Summer, go to my website or whatever, you'll find it there. Yeah.
Perfect. Yes. Good. And just completely by chance, on the mention of this Terrorhawks thing, by the way, we've done a tie-up with a deal with Audible.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to get Terrorhawks Series 1 or Series 2 for free via Audible.
Really?
Yes, then sign up to the Gerry Anderson newsletter, and you'll at the bottom of the newsletter will be instructions about how to get Terrorhawk Series 1, including that one, Series 2 with Nicholas Parsons, for free, just by clicking a link and putting a code in or something.
Nice.
I just hadn't got the details to hand, but I just thought we'd throw that in there.
Yeah, worth saying. Great. Yes, Tony got in touch on Twitter, hashtag Gerry Anderson podcast, to say he loved the Phil Ford interview last week and was looking forward to part 2. Well, there you go, Tony. You don't have to wait any further. Also, looking ahead,
it's all done now.
That's right. Now we're moving on to very shortly, of course, Chris Dale's randomizer. And if you remember last time, Jamie, you actually made a little bet with me, didn't you?
I bet
if we
my
could
dinky
find
something,
anyone whose favourite episode of Thunderbirds was Move and You're Dead, you would pass on to me your valued and treasured UFO interceptor dinky toy.
I don't know where it is actually, but yes.
You don't know where it is. Great. Well, it's all right, because it turns out, Jamie, I think it's quite safe. However, now listen, see what you think. So first of all, Alex got in touch on Twitter, said, I love Move and You're Dead. Not my favourite episode, so Jamie keeps the interceptor, but great stuff nonetheless. It's tense, cheesy, fun, packed full of explosions, and basically sums up what I adore about the Anderverse. There we are.
Fair enough. Each their own.
This was from last week's podcast when Chris reviewed Moving Your Dead for the randomizer. Mike Mercury got in touch to say there are about 4 or 5 episodes I'd consider favourites, and Move and You're Dead is among them. Number 1, I find the setting atmospheric and interesting. 2, Cars and Thunderbirds were my favourite 2 things, and anything which combined them was guaranteed gold to young me. And 3, the how we got into this mess storyline makes more balanced pacing than the typically very last 20-minute heavy structure of the typical Thunderbirds episode. So there you go. So not quite saying it's his favourite, but...
No, but some people saying favourable things.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Just goes to show, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, maybe I'll let you borrow my dinky.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'll even find a missile for you.
Thanks. It's a phrase I don't hear very often.
Shall we see if there's another contentious episode on this week's randomizer?
Let's hope so.
Yes, we'd expect nothing less.
No.
So, over to Chris. Yeah.
Gilroy, bring that crazy old boy in here. Right away, Sheriff. Like sometime today.
It's all right, Kilroy. No need to push. Oh, hello, Sheriff Bull. Are you going to let me go yet? You have kept me here for a week now, you know.
Well, you just might be in luck. Your sweet old manners here, boy.
Oh, God, really? I see. Ah, well done, Marina. Yes, hello, Mother. Mother, this is Sheriff Bull. Sheriff Bull, Mother.
Speak to me.
Oh, she's got a sore throat, actually, at the moment. She's lost her voice, you know.
Now, you put me in mind of someone.
I say, Sheriff, by way of thanks for putting me up in one of your cells for a week, how about I ask you to press the button on the randomizer for me today?
Right.
Oh, I wonder how likely it is we'll land on an episode from a series we haven't yet seen come up.
About as likely as there's snowball in the Arizona desert.
Oh, unfortunately, yes, you're correct, Sheriff. Not that I'm complaining, of course. We're back with Joe 90 today for... Oh, excuse us, Sheriff, we'll just be on our way now. After all, three's a crowd, you know. Well, here we are, back with Joe 90, and we're back at the fortress via some reused, well, I guess, footage that was shot for this episode, no, for that episode, and then later dropped into this one, leading into the most grim moment, not only of this show, but I think of any of the Super Mario Nation shows. This execution scene where this poor Commodore Goddard puppet is pegged out on a stake in a firing range, about to be shot.
Firing squad, at the ready. Take aim. Fire!
And, I mean, we see pretty much everything except the blood.
You work for me. Success is amply rewarded. But fail and you will suffer the same fate as the wretch you have just seen executed.
Oh, I just adore that opening. It is so dark, it is so violent, it is the last thing you expect to see in a children's show, and I think it's Gary Files playing that general. He's put so much venom into that last line, that fail and you will suffer the same fate as the wretch you have just seen executed. I love the venom there. Oh, and it's just like, I think I've said this before, Exhibit A for anybody who says, oh, it's a kiddie show because it's got a kid in it. It's like even the show knows that's a criticism, so it comes out to bat swinging in this episode. It's like, come on then, let's throw an execution scene at you. Oh, brilliant. And of course, after the opening titles, we now cut to this scene in Mac's cottage, and we spend a lot of time in Mac's cottage in this episode, probably more than any other episode of the show, in fact. Again, it's that wonderful sort of contrast, the ultra grim, ultra violent pre-title sequence, and now suddenly we're back in this nice cozy cottage for a charming little romantic story. It's like, it's amazing to think that these are both elements of the same world, this incredible cruelty at the start and then this lovely sort of homeliness and cozy cottage stuff. I've said this before, I've said this so many times about Joe, but I just find it all so charming.
25. Yes, that must seem pretty old to you, Joe.
Well, that's another charming moment. Oh, as we pan to the smiley face clock, as seen in Treble Cross and various other episodes of Captain Scarlet.
Sure, our readers will be surprised and pleased to hear that this cottage is over 150 years old.
That's a very odd line, isn't it? Surprised and pleased. I know Americans can get excited about sort of Britishness to a perhaps unnecessary degree, but surprised. I'm not only surprised that this cottage is so old, I'm excited. Was that the word? I've already forgotten what was said. Surprised and pleased, that was it. I'm pleased that the cottage is over 150 years old. Would they really be pleased? I don't know.
Sweet boy.
Good tea. Nice house. I actually waffled over another of my sort of favourite odd lines in this episode of what's Mac's favourite colour? Oh, you always said you liked blue, Dad. What sort of conversations are Joe and his dad having that Mac is always saying that he likes blue?
Yes, in fact, I disagree with practically everything you said.
Oh, you disagree?
Yes.
You don't like the colour blue. Get out of my house, heathen!
Davis, come and sit down. You've aroused
Mac doesn't behave like that. In fact, she's piqued his curiosity, but Joe is not happy.
Here's the report on the Coburn affair, sir. Good. Well,
I'll just kind of drunkenly dump it on your desk, sir.
About this trip. Yes, sir. I should be away about 2 weeks.
So Shane Weston is holding what I guess is meant to be a letter opener, but he's just holding it directly at Sam. It looks very sharp, possibly very dangerous.
See you in a couple of weeks.
But this is a lovely shot of, I don't know how they would have worked that, but as the camera pans over to Shane Weston, his notebook opens, as if he's opened it, but obviously the puppet wouldn't have opened it. I guess it's operated by a wire, but it's very well hidden. It's another wonderful little subtle touch in bringing these puppets to life. So Joe has been left all alone while his father goes out on a date, and that right there, that single shot, is the introduction of Mrs. Harris. No explanation as to who she is. She is just suddenly there, sat in the corner of the room for one shot. And I know she's a very minor part of the series and even this episode, but just that one shot is so odd that, there's a lady here, we don't know who she is or why.
Well, Joe, I wonder if you'll understand.
Again, this scene and so much of this episode highlights the emotional maturity of this show, that Mac is considering the fact that Joe might have feelings if his father gets involved with Angela Davis.
Tuesday, the opera. Thursday was a lecture, but supper afterwards.
What a thing to come back to.
I love this part of the episode as well. It's like, Professor McClane is having a good time. He possibly might have found happiness. Oh, this hugely inconveniences our operations at WIN. We are going to have to do something about this. This man who's supposedly Sam Luver's friend, he cannot be allowed to enjoy himself. This is just not acceptable. And of course, ultimately, their concerns are proven justified, but it does speak to that sort of element that WIN seem to assume they have the prerogative to just interfere with Joe and Mac's lives whenever they feel like it. Very sinister, but in a darkly amusing way.
I don't like her. She's too smooth.
Yes, I'm beginning to have my suspicions about Miss Davis.
I mean, I've never met her or anything, but the mere fact of her existence, that sets alarm bells ringing with me, Joe. I'm glad you can substantiate my absurd conspiracy theories with a hard fact, Joe. Makes me feel better about betraying my best friend and potentially ruining his life. Thanks, Joe.
There's still so much.
And of course, what do you do when you suspect a woman who, at this point, hasn't actually done anything wrong, even though she is a baddie? What do you do about this woman you're suspicious about? You record her brain without her consent. Of course, it's just what you do. Oh, I love this show. I love how grim this is. And you would think as well that Mac might have some sort of alarm for when the big rat is in operation without his knowledge.
Blast!
What's wrong, Mac?
Oh, nothing. It's just that I promised to take Joe fishing this afternoon. I forgot all about it.
Oh, never mind. Joe's a sweet child.
Wait, weren't you down at the bay, or where was that scene actually where you were sitting by the water? Did you just... I mean, I suppose they're meant to imply that Mac forgot to take Joe fishing because he was busy, he was distracted with Angela, but no, we saw him just sat on the shoreline just reading a book. That's odd. I've never realised that before.
Now let's try and find out what's going on.
Okay, Uncle Sam. I'm ready.
I wonder how far this would have gone on for if it had turned out that Angela Davies was actually completely innocent. Would Sam and Shane have just taken it when Joe said that she's not hiding anything, because remember, they're giving Jo Angela's brain pattern to find out what her evil plan is. As we've seen in Double Agent, the brain pattern transfer, he sometimes acquires more than just the knowledge and experience. What if he received her desire to keep her plans secret and said, "No, Uncle Sam, she's not doing anything," and Sam and Shane then just had to accept that, but actually she was doing something naughty. Conversely, what if, well, as I said, if there was no evil plan, how much further would Sam and Shane go in just ruining Mac's life? This entire sequence of Jo recounting Angela's plan to Sam, I don't feel that this is perhaps as well presented as it could be, because we know going in that it's not real, we know going in that it's hypothetical, and it goes on for such a long time. It's sort of bordering on, when we get to the end of it, it's bordering on sort of dream episode, why on earth did we spend so much time with this-ness? I don't think this needs to be anywhere near as long as it is. I'm wondering if maybe the episode is slightly underrunning, and this is a handy spot to sort of pad it out a little bit with some sneaking around in the dark. And of course you don't have to write any dialogue for this.
I thought I saw a light upstairs in the cottage.
I didn't see anything. Relax.
See, again, that is an odd detail. So, Uncle Sam, I'm imagining that while Angela is down in the basement drilling a hole in the safe, one of the baddies will think he sees a light coming on upstairs in the cottage. But he won't. He will be mistaken. Well, thank you, Jo. That's a thrilling addition to the story. I just think, yeah, that is a really obvious example of padding in this whole sequence. Although we just got a nice pan from the safe where Angela's wired the explosives to it panned across the floor and came to her feet. I just noticed we rarely see oh, she's got the big Rat Master drawings and circuit diagrams. We rarely see puppet shoes, and she's wearing a pair of tiny high heels. I just think it's so wonderful when you see moments in this show where it's an everyday item that's had to be specially produced in miniature. Same within the cottage earlier, there were these sets of sort of head-shaped mugs with a nice shiny finish like you would get on such mugs in real life. Beautiful attention to detail in these shows. So, Jo, how exactly are the baddies going to get back home? Well, Uncle Sam, they're going to catch a World Airways AV-21. But, Jo, isn't that the same plane that you were messing around with in Splashdown? Yes, that's right, Uncle Sam. And now it's changed to a CV-9, Sirenian Airways. But, Jo, why are you telling me all this? How is this relevant to the story? Couldn't this be over by now? No, Uncle Sam, I must tell you every single scintillating detail. Do you want to know what seat numbers they've got on the flight? No. Again, just say she's going to rob the safe and give it to some bad guys. Okay. And now the plane's landed at the other end, and it's AV-21 World Airways again. That was, I think, a common production goof in early episodes of Joe 90. They would never keep those two planes separate. They would always mix up those shots.
The usual arrangements. Gold.
Some people will do anything for it.
And again, that's a very odd place to stop the story. It's like, how are they going to pay the baddies? Oh, they're going to pay them in gold. That's a good point to end the story. I was just looking there, though. The General's fortress house, the interior, I think the same set appeared in International Concerto as well, but it looks very much like Lady Penelope's house, the wallpaper. You could almost imagine that the General would get up and ring for Parker.
Break his heart.
Yes. Look.
Yes, I don't see your problem with this, Jo. It's what I was planning to do anyway.
You've got your chance.
But if you cock it up, I am wreaking emotional devastation like you wouldn't believe.
Remember the jungle? The waiting in the courtyard?
No.
The sound of the firing squad? Failure cannot be tolerated.
Stop. All right.
Oh, I love that confrontation between Joe and Angela. I noticed actually that Joe seems to have a streak of gold running through the top of his head. But yeah, I just love how creepy and sinister he comes off there. And Sylvia as well does a really good job in
This is the hardest decision I've ever had.
in this whole episode, I think, actually.
You're so sweet.
I could believe that this episode was written specifically to give her something to do, because although she plays Mrs. Harris and various other female guest roles, she never really gets anything meaty to do in this show.
You're happy here with Joe.
But Angela is a good character because she's so multifaceted. She is pretending to be nice, but she's also the baddie, and yeah, I love that showdown between her and Joe, especially the way it's directed. As it gets more and more intense, the camera angles are tilting, and then she hears the wonderful sounds of the guns.
Thank you.
I'll drive you to the station.
And Angela leaves Mac's life forever on the transcontinental rocket train from brink of disaster, in fact, from Thunderbirds. Again, we have all this footage, we may as well reuse it.
I'm Sam Louver, World Intelligence.
Look, I don't want a bodyguard. It will only attract attention. Please leave me alone.
I'm here to arrest you.
That is another moment that I don't understand in this episode. She's a baddie. She's leaving on the train, presumably to... I don't know, either she's going to go home, which I don't think she would do, or she's going to go and hide. Why does she think that a government agency is going to provide her with a bodyguard? Wouldn't she be sort of, oh my God, World Intelligence Network, panic?
Well, I've learned over the years to judge people, and I'm glad my instinct...
I leap to conclusions at the earliest possible opportunity, Joe. I judge people without giving them a moment to prove themselves.
Put another log on the fire, Joe.
The episode that opened with the most violent, brutal scene in the show's history ends with perhaps the coziest, with another log being put on the roaring fire. Anyway, that was Three's a Crowd. Despite the fact that not much happens in it, I've always had a soft spot for this one. I hope that it's one that more of you are familiar with now, having perhaps seen it more recently on the wonderful new Blu-ray. That opening sequence is really something special. I don't think that the rest of the episode necessarily lives up to it, but you do have that sense of that looming threat over Angela Davis, because she was watching that execution right at the front of the episode. She knows what's going to happen to her if she messes up, which in a way kind of makes her sympathetic as well, because although she's a baddie, although she's out to get Mac's secrets, and we don't want her to succeed in doing that, we also know that if she doesn't get away with it, she's going to be pegged out and shot at. Oh. Well, Angela Davies has gone from Mac's life. She will not be getting shot at. She's probably locked away in prison somewhere. Much to Sam Louver and Shane Weston's glee, I'm sure. And Joe 90 as always brings me a lot of glee. Bye-bye.
Well, shame it was Joe 90 again.
Yes. I saw your eyes glaze over.
It's an interesting comparison from start to finish with that execution at the opening and then the cosy stoking of the fire. Another log on the fire, Joe.
Yeah, what a journey.
But could that be the darkest, nastiest puppet scene of any Super Mario Nation show in the Anderverse? What do you think?
Gosh. Get in touch if you know better.
I mean, they'll
There's got to be a few in Captain Scarlet,
yeah,
surely.
they'll refer back to Scarlet, but
Yeah.
I think it's the contrast of having Joe involved at all, a kid in the lead role and an execution to open. It's pretty
grim, isn't it?
Grim. But anyway, certainly going to be in the top 3 nastiest Anderson scenes, I'm sure. But
I feel a little Chris Dale video coming on for the website.
Maybe there will be. Go on, Chris. You want to give that a go? But yeah, if you've got a nasty scene you'd like to nominate, then email it into podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. So there we go. Let's hope for another break from Joe 90 now. And
yes, that'd be nice, wouldn't it, for your sake?
What do we need? We need some more Terrorhawks.
Yeah.
Some more Space Precinct, maybe some more Lavender Castle.
Yeah. Lavender Castle would be great.
Any of those would be good.
Yeah, that's right.
And also, I'm not sure if Chris has got the feature films in as in Thunderbird 6, Thunderbirds Are Go, Doppelganger, Crossroads to Crime. We'll have to ask him, but it'd be good if one of those came up.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Anyway, Richard, that's it, isn't it, for this episode?
I think that's about it. All that remains to say is please don't forget to subscribe, rate and review and share this podcast with all your friends. Get in touch at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk or hashtag us on Twitter, Gerry Anderson Podcast, and we'll see your messages there.
Yes, and don't forget to share a photo of yourself in an exotic location if that's where you're listening from. If you're anywhere outside of the UK, basically.
Yeah, because we're not
or somewhere really interesting in the UK.
Oh, yeah, okay, we'll go for that.
If you listen, a kilometre underground in a mine, or from the top of the BT Tower, or underwater in a submarine or something, and you're in the UK, then that's exotic.
That would be great. Absolutely
if you
right.
listen on your sofa or in your van,
or South Mims services,
or South Mims.
No, we agreed that was exotic. That's true.
Yeah, but not Heston services.
Definitely.
These things are lost on anyone outside the UK. Right, okay. So, yes, exotic podcast selfies, please. We'd love to see those. And until Pod 33, where, by the way, we have an interview with Destiny Angel herself, Liz Morgan.
Lovely.
Then have a lovely week.
Yeah. And we'll be in your ears in 7 days' time.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
So, have you forgiven me for Fab Facts yet?
Well,
popularity.
Have I forgiven you?
Yeah.
Listen, there better be some heat generated on Twitter about, Fab or Fib. There better be some compliments about that for our next Fab Live. Otherwise, I really am throwing my toys out the pram.
That's fine, Richard. Well, we're going to find a whole new audience via Twitch and YouTube, aren't we? For Fab
We
Live
are.
Next time. So.
And actually, I think maybe a new segment.
What's your new segment?
Well, I don't know yet.
Oh.
It's New Year. A bit of a new launch on YouTube and Twitch. So I think maybe a little something just to,
or
ring the changes.
on ice.
Orin on ice, it could happen. Watch this space.
I don't know what that format would be, but we can come up with something.
I think we should. Yeah,
maybe we have to reenact a scene from an Anderson show using toys.
Now
to
then,
identify which episode it is.
It's a winner. It's a winner.
What would we call it though?
Oh, I don't know. Oh gosh, that's put me on the spot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do send in your ideas for what we should call this new segment in Fab Live to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk.
Or even to Fab Live at gerryanderson.co.uk.
Indeed.
Anyway, let's see if we can do that. Otherwise, if you've got an idea for a segment and you're still listening, then send that in too, and we'll do what we can.
Great.
Right.
All right.
Have you got a busy day ahead?
Yeah, I've got to write an article for a magazine, and then I'm going to go and see a film, Stan and Ollie, about Laurel and Hardy.
Oh, great!
Yeah.
I've seen some lovely clips from that. It looks great.
Yeah, it should be fun. And
you can review it next time.
I will. More horse news for you this afternoon, or?
No, not horse stuff. I've just got endless calls. I've had 3 missed calls during this recording, so I better get back to them.
Go on then. Off you pop.
All right, Dickie. Have a nice day. Thanks.
And you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.